All right. Good evening, everyone. I want to first thank you for coming out this evening. I am Clark County Commissioner William McCurdy II, and this evening we're going to have a discussion, as you know, on two topics. The first one being a discussion around the classic car bill that was passed, Assembly Bill 349, which is sponsored by Assemblyman Howard Watts. This is a bill that sought to close the classic car loophole. And we have experts, subject matter experts here for you to hear from and also have an opportunity to ask questions. And the second part of this discussion is going to be around hookah lounges, which will begin right around 7 p.m. and we'll go from 7 to 8 p.m. And the purpose of that discussion is to hear from Clark County Business Licensing as well as the City of Las Vegas Business Licensing on hookah lounges, some of the frequently asked questions, as well as how to successfully operate your hookah business. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over we're going to go with Mary first, and she's going to lead the discussion, and she's here at Clark County with air quality. Mary?
Thank you, sir. Perfect. I feel like I'm in church. Sorry, guys. Oh, yay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for showing up. My name is Mary Titano, and I work for the Division of Air Quality. And I'm here tonight to talk about, the vehicle repair program. It's a pilot program with the Department of Environment and Sustainability. It is a one-year pilot, and it'll take me about 15 minutes to go through these slides with you guys, so bear with me. So a little bit about, is it this one? Okay, sorry. So a little bit about the Division of Air Quality. There are 4 components to the division: permitting, compliance and enforcement, monitoring, and planning. I work in the planning section, and developing programs like the one I'm about to tell you, to describe, is part of our job. It's part of what we do. We also are a liaison with the federal government and the state government for protecting the air quality in Clark County. Here's a little history of how we got to where we are today. So in 1965, the federal government established the first vehicle emission standards, and those standards were applied to vehicle with model years 1968. So I'm thinking the 3 years between when the emission standards were established and when they went into effect was to give the manufacturers a chance to meet these standards. And then in 1997, Nevada State Legislature defined these restored vehicles to give car enthusiasts, hobbyists, collectors the opportunity to, I don't want to use the word circumvent, but not have to install parts for the car to have them pass emissions. So there was a exemption that in 1997 came into effect. So the restored vehicles were defined, and they had to meet certain criteria in order to qualify for the exemption. And then in 2011, Assembly Bill 2 was introduced, essentially vacating all the provisions of restored vehicles. So the definition of restored vehicles was removed from the law, and that created a loophole. So vehicles that didn't qualify as restored could bypass emissions testing, given their age, and a few other criteria. No commercial use, an affidavit for mileage per year, things like that. So last year, in 2021, Assemblyman Watts introduced Assembly Bill 349, and that applied a classic vehicle insurance requirement to classic vehicles, essentially closing the loophole. So in order to register your vehicle as a classic car, classic rod, old timer, or classic vehicle, you have to carry and maintain classic vehicle insurance through your insurance provider. and provide that proof upon registration. So, in a nutshell, Assembly Bill 349 was passed, the classic car loophole was closed, Clark County residents will be impacted because an admissions test is required to register your vehicle, and Division of Air Quality is going to help. Is going to try to help. We will help. The new law goes into effect January 1st, 2023. It does a couple of things, a couple of big things. So for new vehicles purchased in 2023, you will have the first 3 years of that vehicle's life, you don't have to test for emissions. Smog checks will start on that vehicle during the 4th registration renewal. And then the big one that we're going to talk a little bit more about today is the classic vehicle insurance that is now required. Okay, so are you impacted? Are you impacted by this law going into effect in January? That depends. If you have a vehicle with a classic plate on it, classic rod, classic vehicle, or old timer, and you don't have classic insurance, or you don't want to get classic insurance, you will have to get an emissions check to register in Clark County. So if that applies to you, or if it doesn't, that's for you to decide. Here are examples of the affected plates. So I don't know if you guys have seen these plates on the road much. So the old timer is the oldest models, 40 years or older. You can get old timer plates. Classic vehicle plates are 25 years or older, and classic rods are 20 years, but after 1949. So here are a couple examples of what they're calling classic in name only. I'm not sure if you have seen these types of vehicles on the road before. If you remember, I said commercial vehicles shouldn't have classic vehicle plates on them. I think these might be, that's speculation on my part, but they might be classic. They might be commercial. So how we plan to help, Division of Air Quality has a very simple mission: protecting the air we share. It's simple. Our job, our entire purpose, is to help reduce pollution in Clark County, and in effect, helping to improve the health of the public. People with asthma, COPD, any kind of respiratory disease or ailment. That's all we want to do. So the vehicle repair program that we're piloting beginning the end of this year will be available to eligible vehicle owners who cannot pass a smog check. And just a little side note, so a vehicle that doesn't pass a smog check compared with a vehicle that does, there is a 88% reduction in emissions between the two. So before repair, a non-compliant vehicle has a significant increase in pollution in the pollutants that are emitted from a vehicle's tailpipe. Okay, so our program is, we're still working out a lot of the details, but this is generally how it's going to go. So let's say you're not going to get, or you don't get classic vehicle insurance. So you go, wrong one, sorry. Can this go backwards? This way? Okay. So the program is, if you can or won't get classic vehicle insurance, you fail a smog check, you submit an application for this program, your eligibility will be determined, and that is an income-based eligibility determination. A voucher is issued either by email or by text message. The details again are still kind of floating around. The repairs will be made at a DMV authorized 2G facility, and you'll pass a smog check, and you're on your way. Our goal is to not inhibit your daily routine. We want you to be able to drop your kids off at school, get to work, go pick up the groceries. We want all that. We just want to help, because we know that the residents of Clark County are going to be impacted come January 1st. Sometimes you don't even know, right? You don't know that vehicle insurance, classic vehicle insurance will be required. Obviously, there are a lot of people that aren't here in Clark County. So the goals of the program: for 1 year, we're going to pilot this program in an attempt to improve the air quality in areas that are adversely affected by poor air quality. So those are areas, probably East Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas, just areas that have a high population density. And if you look on the EPA's website, there's a EJ screen tool that you can look, and you'll see the actual elevated levels of these pollutants. Ozone, particulate matter, you'll see them. NOx. So another goal is to provide financial assistance to those who qualify. And again, we're still working out the details. It's a very new program. I think the last time anything like this was done was 1999, so it's been a while. We're relearning a lot of things. And finally, we just want to keep you on the road, keep you doing your thing, no inhibitions at all. Okay. So just to wrap it up and kind of bring everything full circle, AB 349 closes the classic car exemption, closes the classic car loophole. And it will begin in January of 2023, January 1st. It requires vehicles that no longer qualify for the emissions test exemption to pass a smog check here in Clark County. And Clark County Department of Environment and Sustainability, the repair pilot program will provide financial assistance for those emissions-related repairs for eligible vehicle owners. And I think we're going to have questions later, right? Not because I have another slide. So this is a QR code to sign up for updates as we develop and figure out more details with the program. Scan that sucker and please sign up. Okay. Oh, there's my name and contact information. Thank you so much.
So make sure you take a picture of that name and also the number, because we want to make sure you have access to all the information. And again, and I know next we're going to hear from Kevin Malone, who's a public information officer over at the DMV, that can provide a little bit of information on what their role and their process is going to be as it relates to the inaction of this bill come January 1st, 2023. But it was very important that we had this discussion, because we know that there are about 32,000 vehicles that are currently registered as classic cars. Overwhelming majority of those vehicles, from what we have been able to gather, are a majority in my commission district as well as in Commissioner Sagerblum's. So the goal with the pilot program is, number one, to see how it goes, but number two, help us as policymakers to work, help us to be able to work with the legislators to see what we can do to bring forward other opportunities to procure additional dollars from the state level to potentially expand this program. We just had a discussion on that here today, and it's no secret that this is going to disproportionately impact folks who are of lower income. So we're going to do everything that we can with the goals and initiatives that we have as it relates to the policy that has been set forth by the legislature to provide some type of remedy to the families who are going to be in need. And truly that is our goal with this discussion. So I'll ask Kevin Malone to come up from the Department of Motor Vehicles and provide some information. And is there anyone who needs anything translated?
¿Hay alguien que nada más habla español, no habla inglés? ¿Todos entienden inglés?
¿Está bien?
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. I appreciate it. My name is Kevin Malone. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles. And I have been with the department for 24 years. So I've seen pretty much everything with the DMV come and go. We have a computer programmer who's been there for 25 years, and we say between me and her, we know absolutely everything there is to know about the DMV. And as Mary alluded to, there was a voluntary vehicle repair program back in the day here in Clark County, and I'm really glad to see it coming back. It was a very useful thing. I guess it was dropped primarily for funding reasons. But anyway, we're here to talk about the classic plates. Let's start by taking a look at the existing law. All of this affects 3 different plate styles. Classic vehicle, classic rod, and old timer. What does it take to get these plates? Well, your vehicle has to meet the age requirements listed up there, and you can't have had a failing smog check within the past 90 days. That's it. That's all it takes to get these license plates. If you want to claim the smog exemption that comes with it, you also have to fill out a form and sign it, an affidavit that you won't drive the vehicle for more than 5,000 miles per year or use it in any commerce. But it's just a signature, it's an affidavit. When you renew every year, you have to complete another one of those affidavits stating that you have not driven the vehicle for more than 5,000 miles each year. And we track the odometer. If you put down that if the odometer readings show that you drove 6,000 miles, we're going to flag it and make you go get a smog check. That's the existing log already. But people are smart. You know, they'll just fib a little bit on the odometer reading and make sure it stays under 5,000. You have to fill it out every year, but people are smart. The other thing with all of this is that if your vehicle is 1967 or older and you're out in the rural areas, you don't need a smog check anyway. And you can have the classic vehicle, classic rod, or old timer plates, drive the car as much as you want, and you don't need a smog check. There's no restrictions. You can renew online. You don't have to sign any affidavit to renew. So what is the problem then with all this? The problem is the plates are too easy to get. Smog check evaders. This person on Twitter asks, in our example, at Nevada DMV, how does this landscaping truck qualify as a classic vehicle? Well, it doesn't. There's no way you can call that a classic vehicle, but it's the way the laws are set up. And of course, it's the DMV that's getting all the comments on social media about it. The last time the laws on this were changed was 2011, as Mary was saying. Since the law was changed in 2011, the number of registrations with classic vehicle, classic rod, or old timer plates has gone from 5,400 to 39,000, and that's statewide, not just Clark County. So that's a 700% increase in the number of vehicles with classic plates. In the same time period, the total vehicle registrations in Nevada went from 2.1 million to 2.6 million. That's about a 25% increase. So that kind of illustrates the scope of the problem there. The classic vehicle plates went straight through the roof, largely because of people evading the smog checks. So let's take a look at the new laws. They, believe it or not, are kind of almost exactly the same. To get the plates, you need to have the proper age on your vehicle and no failing smog check within the past 90 days. But the new twist is now you will have to have classic vehicle insurance on your vehicle. And you have to show that at the DMV to renew. And now a lot of classic car collectors, people with honest people with classic cars, already have classic vehicle insurance. For one thing, it's cheaper. They already have it. They're already used to coming down to the DMV or mailing in or faxing their renewal, filling out the affidavit. So for the actual classic car collectors, this is a little bit of an extra hassle, but not very much. They just have to include the declarations page with their renewal. But note that this does apply to all vehicles with classic vehicle, classic rod, and old-timer plates. That includes the 1967 and older vehicles and the vehicles out in the rural areas. They have been able to renew online. Say if you live out in Elko or wherever, now they are going to have to renew in person by mail or fax and show us their declarations page. So it's actually kind of a separate thing from the smog check exemption. It's going to apply to all 39,000 of those vehicles across the state. So let's dive a little bit into the specifics. That's a lot of text up there. I'll just go through it. The 2021 legislature passed AB 349. In addition to the insurance provision, it does specifically state that vehicles with classic vehicle plates can't be used for general transportation, any commercial purpose, or driven more than 5,000 miles per year. So that is a condition of having the plates now where it wasn't before. And I realize you can't read this, but I have it stated twice. If you can't get classic vehicle insurance, you have to get a smog check if it's required, surrender the plates, and get a different style of license plate. So we're going to be in for some surprises. We're going to do everything we can to reach these people, but there's going to be a lot of people coming up surprised with their smog check affidavit, and we're going to ask them for your declarations page. It's probably going to happen. We're going to have a lot of people who are surprised. So I can't speak for the insurance industry, but I did take a look around to take a look at exactly what classic vehicle insurance is. The policies vary between all of the different companies. Most of the big companies do offer it, but there's a few that have some common elements. First of all, the vehicle holds its value or it increases in value. If you think about that, you know, a 1969 Camaro is going to increase in value as time goes on. The landscaping truck will decrease in value. Each vehicle receives either an assigned value or an agreed upon value. So, you know, if you've got a custom car that's been restored, they can't just pull the manufacturer's suggested retail price in your zip code and work from that. They actually have to see the vehicle, see at least pictures of it, and figure out what the value of that vehicle is. So that's the big catch. The insurance company wants to evaluate the specific vehicle. And if you come up with a food truck, they're not going to write classic vehicle insurance on it. Sorry, they're just not going to. And there's a few other things like they like to see safe storage and might put some mileage restrictions on you. So that's really, it's going to be the insurance companies that are kind of enforcing this. As I said, we're going to be reaching out to all 39,000 people across the state in every way we possibly can. The renewal notices have language about this on the back of them. They're going to be going out now in the yellow section that, again, you can't read it, but it's there. It explains it all on the back of the renewal postcards and the emails. We already have the information up on our website under the classic vehicle and the registration renewal pages, and we are going to be doing a paid advertising campaign starting in November and probably running all through the year, trying to target these 39,000 people to keep the surprises to a minimum and to promote the voluntary vehicle repair program. And with that, thank you very much, and I guess we'll take any questions. Oh, okay. Oops.
Yeah. So these people that get these, have these classic plates, are they going to be able to qualify for a waiver?
Well,
Because, you know,
they're
you want
not
them.
going to be able to qualify for the smog check exemption if they can't get classic vehicle insurance.
Right, but what's gonna happen is people are gonna not wanna get the classic vehicle insurance because the insurance companies won't do it. And then they're gonna need to fix it. Are they gonna be able to qualify for a waiver?
Well, we have our existing program where if you put so much money into the vehicle, repairs by a 2G shop, I don't need to tell you that.
I'm well
They
aware.
should be able to qualify for the waiver. But we're gonna try to push them into the voluntary vehicle repair program too.
Okay, and then I'd have a follow-up question on the program. I know it's pretty new, but does so you get the voucher, but the money is spent, and then will the voucher apply towards a waiver, or will it only apply towards a passing smog, or is that not
It'll go
known yet?
toward the repairs.
Towards the repairs, right? But you can repair a vehicle up to being able to get a waiver for it, so you can just register it, or you can repair a vehicle until it actually passes the smog.
Well, of course, we'd rather see the vehicle repaired till it passes the smog, and if we have the funding from the county, I think that'll be the goal.
Right, but I'm just trying to find out what
Yeah, honestly, we haven't discussed those kind of details yet.
okay. Well, I mean,
Question, and
yeah, well,
I'll bring it up with
I
our
own a
admission
2G shop,
control.
so I need to, know what to tell my customers when they come and say, hey, I want to get this car fixed. I need to know, is this something that,
Oh,
is this money going to be able to apply for a waiver, or once you get the money, do you have to pass a smog? Because those are two totally different things, especially for some of those vehicles that don't have original equipment, emissions stuff, parts and things like that.
Okay, well, that's a very good question, and I will be bringing it up with our emissions folks. And we will get that nailed down before it goes into effect. Thank you for that.
Okay, thanks.
My question is regarding classic cars that are not licensed under the special license plates. So for example, I'll be concrete to make it easier. I have a 1965 car. It's got regular old plates on it. I didn't see any advantage of having the classic or old timer plates. And I do happen to have classic car insurance on it. I don't drive at 5,000 miles. But so I've never had to smog it. There's no smog equipment on it. None existed at that time. So I just want to make sure that basically the same license plate restriction, the same restrictions for the license plate holders is going to be the same for a 1965 car as well. Is that true?
Well, the restrictions only come into play if you have a classic vehicle license plate.
Okay.
If you have some other plate, the standard Nevada plate or one of the specialty plates, it's just, there's no rules for it. The 1965 vehicle isn't subject to smog check, and there's no mileage restrictions on it.
Okay. So just I'm not trying to make things more difficult on us, that class of people, but what was the logic behind that of, that's not folded into the air quality mandate, if it's a 1965 car, but if you put classic plates on it, suddenly it is.
Well, that's something that was, do you have an answer for that?
I mean,
That's something you'd
that's the-
have to bring up with the
So,
legislature.
yeah, so that would be something, obviously, that would be brought up at the legislature. Because we're only here together this evening because the legislature said that, hey, you county, you have the ability to, raise, small fees, for example, to help with these repair and replace programs. But if, as you just pointed out, the policy is not, all the way sound and doesn't address entirely what we're seeking to do, which is improve air quality standards, then maybe they may take another bite at the apple at the next legislative session.
Yeah. Just gonna grab some from this side, anyone? No? All right. Maybe bring it back right here, okay? Okay, so Dwight.
So as far as the emission goes, the trucks that we have, you can't get parts for them. You can't get emission parts for them because they no longer make them. So if my smog pump fails, what am I supposed to do if it doesn't pass smog? Because the smog pump fails, I can't go to the parts store and get a smog pump because they discontinued the part.
Well, if that vehicle's not repairable, then it's not repairable.
So then that means that I can't register it because it's not repairable.
Well, correct. It wouldn't be, if you just had regular plates on it and a smog check is required, you wouldn't be able to register it.
But it's got classics on it. So if I got classic
Right.
insurance, and then let's say I go over the 5,000 miles, if it doesn't pass smog because the smog pump froze up, and I can't get a smog pump
But
for
you're
it.
talking about a commercial vehicle here?
No, we're talking about a regular standard 78 pickup truck. That I can no longer get engine parts for it because they discontinued it. So if I can't pass smog because a part is discontinued, then I feel that I'm being punished because I can't find this part.
Well, what can I say? That's correct. You need to be able to pass the emissions test and pass the smog check in the county you're in.
So you're telling me that a car that I've had almost 20 years and a part fails on it, I can't pass smog, then it's just gonna sit in my garage and decrease in value and I can't drive it, and I got all this money tied up into it because of a part that I can't find because they discontinued it from the manufacturer. I think that I'm being punished because this part, it does not exist. Aftermarket or factory.
Well, and again, that would be something to take up with the legislature again and see if they want to write that, but the laws as it stands is we would not be able to register that car. Yeah, with the,
So real quick, there's the 5,000 miles that I come in. I have 9 of these things registered right now with classic rod or classic vehicle plates. They're not nice. They're just stuff that I keep out of the junkyard because they're old and nobody makes them anymore. However, I sign on my form that 5,000 miles. Under your new law, I still sign for 5,000 miles. And nobody knows whether that 5,000 miles I put down on it is legit or not. So this thing did not change that whatsoever. You just
Right.
added the additional burden of putting classic car insurance on it for some reason. The other thing I'd be very curious about, you guys would have this data, but you sat there and you went on tonight about the 32,000 classic rotted vehicles that are now in this county. What year groups? Was there an explosion in 75s all of a sudden, or 82s all of a sudden, or was there an explosion in the 90s and 2000s? Because right now, a 2002 Z28 is a 20-year-old car that can get classic rotted plates, which is a sequential fuel injected motor that has
that
all
should
the
be
good
able to
stuff and is
pass
a
the
whole lot
OBD
cleaner than
check.
some of my older stuff. So, like I said, I was trying to figure out the problem that this was trying to solve.
The problem it's trying to solve, as we've shown you the examples, is cars that don't even begin to classify.
There's a
qualify as
Supreme Court
classic
ruling
vehicle
that has a
with these
very
plates.
famous thing about it. It says, I can't define porn, I just know it when I see it. So that's the rule that you're trying to use now when it comes to what you consider to be a classic vehicle or not.
The insurance company is going to determine whether it's a classic vehicle or not.
Anyways, I'm done.
You know, we all like cleaner air. Nobody's going to argue about that. And but by your own numbers you've given us tonight, it's 1.5% of the vehicles out there have these classic plates that we're concerned about. And a very small percentage of those are your commercial vehicles and your food trucks and stuff that we all kind of agree don't fit into that category. You know what? I cannot blame the state at all for wanting to see that food truck have regular commercial license plates on their car. But you're going after, you're affecting a very small number of people over an even smaller number of offenders. By your own numbers, it's 1.5% of vehicles have classic plates. And then this is, and we can all agree we'd like cleaner air. Has there been any efforts over the last 20 years to synchronize the the traffic lights in Las Vegas. I've lived in Phoenix before, and they got signs. You can drive, they have much smaller streets and much more traffic, and you can drive 40 miles an hour and go all the way across town until you hit Grand Avenue and not miss a single traffic light. And then once you get across Grand Avenue, you can go for all the way across. You drive 40 miles an hour. In Las Vegas, even when there's not a lot of cross streets, sometimes just getting across the bridge of the freeway, you miss every light.
So again, thank you for your comments. We really appreciate them. I think just as a reminder, the goal of this evening is to provide information, allow for everyone to know what's happening so that you can provide your comments. We're definitely going to be able to go back and review these comments and potentially, forward them over to the bill sponsor. This is set to go into in effect January 1, 2023. And we have a legislative session that's happening starting in February. So if there are, again, like as you mentioned, still additional needs to address within the policy that we're mandated with here today, there will be an opportunity to at least speak with the bill sponsor to say, hey, you should probably take a look at this as well. So, again, it's not us, we're implementing. We just want you to know, like, hey, this is happening. This is how you need to participate. This is what's going into effect. And, oh, by the way, if there's an issue, let's address it with the bill sponsor so that we can get those things addressed by this next legislative session. Any more questions?
Yeah, I'll go. So I'll pretty much just try to wrap this semi into a question / public comment because, again, like you're saying, we're here to inform people. So the years you put up there between 2011 and 2022, I actually looked up the population difference, and population 2011 was 500 million people. Population right now is 2.8, about to reach 3 million. So that's actually 7 times, or 6 to almost 7 times the number of people. So the numbers up there was 7 times the number of people. So that makes about sense if we include that most of those people that came in were under or low income.
Well, but the number of vehicles didn't go up that much.
I understand, but most of the people who have vehicles, if we're being real, are low income because they're getting to work. And that's why most of the people he said were being affected were in his district because most of the people are low income. And that's, again, sir, person in front of me. That's why this wasn't really affecting you. It's mostly affecting low income people because that's who it's really targeting. Because if we were really trying to clean up the air, again, this is just for information purposes. I don't know if you know this. The only form of leaded gas still allowed in the United States is from private planes. And we have a private airport in North Las Vegas. So that means leaded gas is continuously cycling this city constantly, in low-income areas. People who don't even know better. And then we look at why there's increase of violence in these low-income areas. But again, it's because, hey, let's maybe look at the environmental factors. Again, I understand hydrocarbons are bad, but what's even worse is lead. Sorry. Again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be fixing these cars, but again, there's other ways to help people. We could, one, try to put more catalytic converters underneath vehicles or have more installed. I know it's not a complete fix to the problem, but it could gap at least somebody a year, so that way they don't have to pay thousands of dollars of damages, on a vehicle that's not even worth that, so most insurances won't even cover them. Sorry. It's a lot of bureaucracy I'm trying to go through real quick. Sorry, I had more stuff. Okay, and another thing that makes me mad is we grandfather seatbelts, but we want grandfather this. Again, I understand it affects more of the community, but again, whenever it comes to industry, we're okay with it hurting the community at large. But whenever it comes to individual people just trying to make a living, then it's just like, nope, gotta gut that, because they're the first people that don't have people who can lobby at the state, because most of them are working every day, just like low-income parents can't be there for their kids to understand what's going wrong with their kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment, sir.
I just want to reiterate what they were saying. Lawmakers are making these rules without putting them to the public. They don't even concern them. But again, you're looking at 1.5%, and I double checked his numbers. They're exactly right. 1.5% of the vehicles we're going through to make a special ruling for. You're going to make people lose their cars simply because collector car insurance requires a garage. Not everybody has a garage. Not everybody's got a $100,000 Corvette that they're going to be able to afford the garage and the collector insurance. It's just not possible. And the other part of what you're talking about, she's talking about this repair system because we want you to be able to get to work. What you put up there specifically says you can't drive it to work. Specifically says it. So what's the repair system for then?
Well, no, if you go into the repair system and get regular license plate past the smog check, there will be no.
But I wouldn't have to do that if you didn't put that in there, that we have to have collector car insurance and you can't drive it to work. It specifically says it can't be used for general transportation.
Correct. Cars with classic vehicle plates.
Why not?
So
That makes no sense.
because it's, a daily driver is not a classic vehicle.
Why not? You can drive anything you want. Then make it a class, and it's still a classic. What is your definition of classic? 1965 Mustang? There's a lot more than that. A lot more. And you specifically state in there, I mean, she said in the very beginning, we're going to make sure that you can get to work and take your kids to daycare and stuff. You specifically can't do that.
Well, no, again, you repair the vehicle and get regular license.
And if the vehicle can't be repaired because you're forcing that part, then he's got to basically junk his car that he's had for 20 years that's in a garage. He happens to have a garage, but it makes no sense. You're going after 1.5% of the people when you got so much crap in the air besides unleaded aircraft fuel. This amount of smog is so insignificant, and if you look at the registrations, I guarantee 39,000 registrations, it'd take one person at DMV who's actually working for a change to go through those registrations. 1 week, they could go through and they could pick out every food truck and commercial vehicle and cancel the plates on those without touching anybody else. You could tell by the nomenclature of the food truck if it's what it is on the title. Well, C30 is going to be a commercial vehicle. Yeah, but they don't know that. It wouldn't take them nothing to learn. Instead of sitting in there.
There is no specific designation for a commercial vehicle. And, you know, it will say Chevrolet, but there's no standardization on models. So there's way too many models to keep track of. So, you know, that's a possibility.
Day and age of
But
computers, it's way too.
we can't go arbitrarily go through a list and say, this guy, we're going to cancel this guy and we're not going to cancel that guy. We don't have the authority to do that. No, we don't.
So just to remind us, the goal of this meeting is to provide information. We didn't pass the policy at the state level, but the goal is also to forward the comments and the concerns and considerations that are had within this meeting with the bill sponsor. So we will be forwarding that over, and there are some points that are being made that I think that are worth taking a look at, but I think you had a comment.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. So that the question that I asked in the beginning addresses a lot of those concerns. So if the air quality people are providing money for vouchers, if these cars qualify for a waiver, the amount to get a waiver is $450. That's how much you have to spend in repairs at an authorized repair station in order to get a waiver on the smog. So that would be the amount. I don't know how much money they're going to provide, but that would get you at least a year on those vehicles. No, yeah, I mean, I
60s and 70 cars.
I understand.
Cars that you see on the road that have classic plates that are in the 80s, in the 90s and the 2000s, those are the ones that are polluting the air, not the 60s, 70s, and you know what I mean?
Well, look, I own smog stations. When we test the cars, the older cars pollute the most. We just by the numbers. But I understand, especially now, sometimes parts are hard to get. I own repair shops as well. You know, we try to get parts for everything. But if they allow the cars to get waivers, I'm just saying that that's probably going to cover 99.9% of those.
To do what? If I can't get the part, then it's useless.
That's something that you'd have to take up with the emissions lab. They'll have to address it.
Part for a Japanese motor that was put in a GM product. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I get it.
So we were trying to solve it, you know, some of this stuff. You guys. 4 months away from going to be implemented. Still working, young lady. But, I think people can hear me, and if you can't, I'll talk louder. Our recording can't hear you? So we want to make sure we get this recorded. Okay. If the commissioner wants to hear.
No?
Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. Now I kind of.
It was on.
More than one vehicle. More than one vehicle. Yeah. Oh, well. More than one vehicle to be able to qualify to have one that's classic product. You cannot have just a solo individual with a solo vehicle that is registered as a classic vehicle, and that'd be the only one in the household. You were supposed to have more than one. No, 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 no. Oh, it does? Okay, so that's the part of it that gets that. So you guys right now with your 32,000 and the people and stuff along those lines should be able to sit there and look at the stats and sit there and say how many solo households have a collector car or classic rotted plated vehicle sitting in the garage and they don't have an alternative transportation. Those should be the ones that you're going to be looking at for your program, young lady, because those are the ones that are probably going to have a problem passing smog and they're using it on a daily basis, which is what your program is trying to solve. So, I mean, I think you have the access to the data to be able to sit there and make the implementations for what you're trying to accomplish with this, as opposed to going after a 70-80 Isuzu pickup truck that's got a Chevy bow tie on it.
Well, one problem with that is that the vehicles are tied to the driver's license, so if you have the wife owns the daily driver and the husband owns the, you know, it's small things like that, but, yeah. But again, with this legislation as it stands, we could target those people, but it's still going to apply to all of the cars.
Yeah, that's fine.
So what I'm going to do is, we make sure when you depart, make sure we have all your information. We're going to connect you with the bill sponsor so that you can voice the concern so that he may take a look at maybe revisiting the legislation this next session. His name is Howard Watts, and we'll make sure we connect you with him. All right, we're going to go just a few more comments.
Just a quick question.
Hold on, wait for the mic.
What is the difference between the gas and the diesel? It is a lot of cars with the diesel, and they take off, and there's a lot of smoke behind them. So if we're going to restrict that, what we can do about that?
Diesel vehicles are allowed to smoke a little bit just by their nature. They are allowed to emit some smoke. You can't go out and roll coal. You know, people do that. They'll change the chips in there so it smokes like a chimney, and that's illegal. But diesel vehicles are allowed to emit a little bit of smoke. Diesel vehicles up to 14,000 pounds do have to go undergo a test every year, though. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but they have more smoke than the other regular cars that you guys try to oppress on that sense. You know, you try to, let's say, one vehicle of with diesel smokes a lot, and then 10 cars, there are differences in the quality that they have the smoke up there. So it is more smoke when with the diesel than the regular car, per se. like you just mentioned, how it works.
Yeah, it's just the nature of diesel vehicles. And they are allowed to emit some smoke. But one thing with diesels that doesn't happen with gasoline cars is we test them on a dynamometer, where you actually put the car on rollers and test it under a load. So the testing is actually a little more accurate for diesel vehicles.
Thank you.
Questions on this side?
All right, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. I just wanted to thank both Mary and Kevin for their time this evening, spending it with us. Again, if you have any other questions regarding the classic car bill AB 349, just stop outside, just ask Lori to put an asterisk by your name, and we're going to make sure that the assemblyman either give you a call or we coordinate connecting you with Assemblyman Watts. So that concludes. Again, thank you, Mary and Kevin, for your time. And can we give them a round of applause for sharing some time with us?
Don't know if we deserve it, but there you go, right?
We don't want them on a hot seat. You want them to have a good drive home. So we're now going to go into our second portion, so we'll allow for 5 minutes. Looks like we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which is always great. So what we're going to do is we allow 5 minutes for transition, and then we're going to roll into our conversation on hookah lounges and to be joined by the county and city business licensing.